channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union. Hello comrades and welcome back to the Ushanka Show. Well, since we're on a topic of transportation, I would like to talk a little bit about trains in Soviet Union. First of all, we're going to talk about electrical trains, or so-called Elektrichka, which usually were local trains connecting big cities with smaller towns or connecting some smaller towns. Soviet government spent a lot of time and money electrifying the railroads, and the first Elektrichka was launched in Baku, Azerbaijan, Soviet Azerbaijan in 1926. It was a very convenient way to get out of the city and also for people living around city to go into the city for business. Like many people lived on the outskirts of big cities like Kiev or Moscow, and they came every day to work in a big city by Elektrichka, and then in the evening they'll go back. Also on the weekend, Elektrichkas were extremely busy because people from city would go out to stay at their dacha, their summer homes, which will be located pretty close to the Elektrichka stops, maybe up to half an hour walk. Also, people who like do fishing, they will take early Elektrichka on the weekend to go and fish somewhere at the rivers or lakes. And at the same time, the peasants will be going on the weekend towards the city to bazaars to sell their produce like potatoes, chickens, vegetables, and it was way more convenient to use electrical trains versus buses because you can bring big bags of stuffs into the train and you won't have that much more room in the bus. Personally, I traveled only several times on Elektrichka. Interestingly, most of them were made in Riga, Latvia, and it was just a bunch of hard wooden seats or seats made of plastic. So people be sitting, just there'll be no room to lay down, of course. I was told that some of the trains had bathrooms. I personally do not recall having bathrooms. Elektrichka was the cheapest way to travel by train, and it was actually possible to travel long distance because at the final stop there'll probably be some town that you can hop on another Elektrichka and head out to another big city. And there was a thing like traveling by Elektrichkas. It's like when you don't have enough money to pay for the real train, you just use Elektrichkas, and it was way easier to avoid ticket control at these Elektrichka trains because you could just walk through the train kind of away from the person who checks the tickets, and then on the next train stop, you'll walk around and enter the train again into the cars that already were checked. So some people used to do that to have a free ride. So of course the Elektrichka had a lot of stops, so they were pretty slow train. And next level will be so-called общий вагон, or general train car. And now we're talking about real trains that go long distance. So the cheapest way to travel in a regular train will be to buy a ticket to the общий вагон, general car. And those could be different ones. Some of them had hard seats, those benches, just like Elektrichka did. And others would be so-called platzkart, which we'll talk a little bit later. But this is the picture how the platzkart looked. The trick was that they would sell pretty much unlimited amount of tickets for that general train car, which means as many people could jam in there, that's many people can go in there. And I had experience of traveling like that one time. I needed to go to Moscow. It was winter, I believe, like maybe 1990 or 1980, a long time ago. And so we came to the Kiev railroad station, and the only tickets we could buy was tickets to this general train car. And there was a big crowd of people that trying to get in that car. So we actually had to like pretty much like fight our way in, me and my friend, and that place was packed. I mean, there was a platzkart type train car, and usually you can have 4 people on one side and 2 people up on opposite side. There were probably close to 10 or more people were the only spot for 4 people. So there'll be people laying up on the third level on the shelf where they usually keep luggage or mattresses. Otherwise, we'll all be sitting packed tight. There was a bunch of bags. That was the time when, maybe that was 91 or 92. It's after collapse of Soviet Union, and some people realized that they can make money bringing foods from Ukraine into Moscow, because prices for groceries were way higher, maybe twice or 3 times higher in Moscow versus Ukraine. So that's how people started making money, earning money, working as shuttles. They'll just bring and buy food cheap in Ukraine and then travel to Moscow, sell them at the bazaar. So that car was packed with bags with walnuts and you name it. Somebody had frozen chickens that started melting in the middle of the night. So there'll be people sitting on their bags right in the hole when people were supposed to walk. That was a horrible night. The lady who was in charge of that train car locked the bathroom because she didn't want to have it being nasty. And in the morning she discovered a big pile of somebody went number 2 right in the train car, in that little area where you go get off the train, and she was super mad. But yeah, that was a horrible experience riding in that train. It was packed, it was stuffy, and people were everywhere. I remember sitting, and all you could just sit, you couldn't lay down, so I spent the night kind of laying my head on the shoulder of the guy next to me. Then another person kind of said if it's okay if they lay on my knees to take a nap. So that so-called общий вагон, a general car, that was the next cheapest way to travel by train in Soviet Union. Now we're going to talk about so-called platzkart. That was the most popular way of traveling by train. It had no doors in those compartments, so there was all wide open train. So if you look at this picture, you had 4 people on the one side, and there'll also be 2 people on so-called side seats, and that was a very uncomfortable location because all day would be people walking by you, and at night when you turn that place into bed, you flip the table down, and so you have one bed on the bottom and second bed up on the shelf. There'll be people walking by you too, so they see you, and it makes noise, of course. And the worst spot would be if that side place that will be right next to the toilets, to the bathroom, because that will be really smelly and stinky place. Plus, of course, everyone's going to the bathroom from that car, so it'll be constantly traffic, doors slamming open and close. So those spots were the worst spots on the platzkart train. Myself, I traveled several times by train and platzkart car. Very first time was late 70s. I had a surgery done to my leg. I was probably about 6 years old, and doctors recommended to my parents to take me to the Black Sea and use warm seawater to speed up the healing of my leg where it was cut. So my mom took a short vacation and went with me to Simferopol, and then we took a bus from Simferopol to town on the shores of Black Sea of Patoria, where we spent a week. I think it was like middle of September, so there were not many people on the beach, but we traveled by train, and we actually had those side seats on the one. I think, not sure why, or maybe there were no tickets available, just one ticket available, or maybe my mom just wanted to save money, but she purchased just one ticket. And since I was a little kid, it was allowed, so we had to share that little tiny bed. So my mom pretty much had to sleep in the sitting position. Then also, a little bit later, I went to Leningrad on the same type of train, was in a platzkart car in 1986 when Chernobyl exploded, and my parents sent me to St. Petersburg. Well, now it's called St. Petersburg. At that time was Leningrad, and I waited there, stayed with a friend of mine at his grandma's place to wait for the worst radiation stuff happening in Kiev. And then also a year later I traveled to Baku, Azerbaijan. That was part of the being a tourist with a bunch of other kids from my school, and that was a long trip because it took us a total of 2 days. And then also I went another time to Leningrad, holding a backpack full of garlic to sell. One more time I went to Gomel, Belarus, to sell some sausages. One time it was a business trip. We took a train to Donetsk region, Ukraine. And several times I went to Moscow. When I came first time to the United States in 1995, I was on exchange program called CCUSA, Camp Counselors USA, and that company was from Moscow. So in order to fly to United States, I had to take a train to Moscow, and then I would fly to America. And I was doing that program for 4 times from 95 till 98. So every time I had to take a train from Kiev to Moscow. So that was the last time I used Soviet trains, was in 1995, 1998. If you go long distance, so you have to spend the night in the car, you could purchase bedding from the person in charge of that car. The cost was 1 ruble, so every area would have on that third shelf way up high, there'll be rolled mattresses, and you won't be allowed to use that mattress if you didn't have sheets on it. So some people maybe were trying to bring their own sheets, I'm not sure. I remember my parents always buying sheets, and it'll be 1 ruble, which is not cheap. And then also you could purchase tea in this interesting looking teacup. It would be metal, the base was the glass thing inside of it, and the price was 5 or 6 kopecks. So there'll be always a big boiler going, and the person will be making teas. And of course that time there was no Wi-Fi, no internet, so long trips were super boring. A lot of times people just play cards or talk, then they'll start drinking vodka. Of course, there was no air conditioning ever, so if you travel in the summer, those cars will get really hot. So many times people will be just sitting there Speedos or underwear because they'll be so sweating hot. And of course, at night, people have minimal clothes and have just sheets over them. So sometimes it'll be kind of fun. It'll be some pretty young lady half undressed across from you, suffering from the heat just like you. Well, we have to talk about bathrooms on the trains, or they call it toilets. It was a little tiny spot, smaller than Greyhound bus has. And what the most amazing thing, well, besides it was really dirty and nasty, like no one would sit on that metal toilet. Some people would just climb on it and squat over it, but it was gravity toilet. So it's quite amazing. I'm trying to find a short video or something or pictures, so I hope when we make this video put together you'll have some photos to watch or video. But when you push the flush pedal, the bottom would open and you see the railroad tracks flying under you because train is moving, and that stuff will be just dumped right on the ground under the train car. And by the rules, 30 minutes prior arriving to the next train stop, to the next city, the person who is in charge of that particular train car would lock up the bathroom. So you need to know that she will warn you, okay, bathrooms will be closed in about 10 minutes because we are arriving to our destination, next train stop, so they will lock up the bathrooms. And yes, all I remember, those bathrooms were always nasty. They didn't have toilet paper, you had to have your own, and it was so tiny that you hardly could turn around. The next type of the train car was so-called coupe, which was way more comfortable. So there will be compartments which had 4 spots for 4 people, and each of that compartment had its own door you can close. So there will be no side seats, there'll be just a hallway by the windows, and then there'll be doors where the people would sit. So that will be way more comfortable. You have a lot of privacy, and because the tickets price wasn't that big difference between coupe and platzkart, it was virtually impossible to purchase coupe. Those would be sold like right away, and then people will be buying platzkart. An interesting moment, there'll be some tickets always on hold at each train station, so even if there'll be some spaces available on the train, they won't sell it till the last minute. They'll have so-called bronь, which you can translate like armor. So those tickets would be held in case maybe if some government official needed to go right away, or military guy, some officer. So they'll keep those tickets for the last minute, but then if they're not needed, then they will sell them. So quite often there'll be people waiting by the ticket booth, waiting when this bronь, when this armor will expire and the tickets will become available to buy. And the best way to travel in Soviet Union by train will be to purchase a ticket in so-called SV, or sleeping train, you can say, спящий вагон. It's only same like coupe, but it'll be only 2 spots for each coupe, only 2 people, so it was way more comfortable, and it was also quite more expensive. I never been in one of those, never seen it, and I traveled in coupe several times, 3 times in 1991-92 when I was got a job smuggling vodka to Poland from Ukraine, and all the trains going across the border from Soviet Union or Ukraine, they'll only be coupe type. So that's why I traveled first time in coupe, and then one time when I was on the way to England in 1998, I took a train to Poland. It was a coupe train, and one more time to Germany. Also, many trains, long distance trains, had a restaurant. So one of the train cars will be so-called wagon restaurant, a car restaurant, and I never went to one. Prices were pretty high, but that was a cool thing to do while you're traveling, is to go and have some food and alcohol at the restaurant on a train. Another interesting thing is people doing business on the trains. What I remember, there was always people who pretended, or maybe they were deaf and mute for real, but they wouldn't talk and only use the sign language, but they'll be selling different like calendars, homemade black and white calendars, There'll be like cats or pictures of saint people, icons, so different photos. And the way they would peddle this stuff, they'll walk through the train car and just quietly lay on a table this array of different calendars. Without saying a word, they just put them, go to the next spot, put them again, then wait about 10 minutes. People will be looking through them, and then they come back and collect them. Or if you want to purchase one of those, then you give them money. Usually it was 1 ruble. And there's some photos I could find, so there'll be pictures of cute cats, and as I said, maybe some saint people, some icons. And also they were selling erotic photos, but they won't put it on every table. They'll be sneaky about it. So if they see there'll be a bunch of young guys sitting at this table, so there'll be some cute half-dressed girls, which was the homemade photos. So they had some Soviet underground models posing half naked. So that was Russian-style Playboy. So that was really interesting. I still can't find out for sure, were they pretending to be deaf and mute, or they were doing this for real and it was the only way they can earn money. Also, several places like train stations were famous for specific foods. For example, some places people will always go at the train station and purchase smoked fish, or maybe cherries or apricots. If people who live in Siberia, if they go south to the Black Sea, which was the favorite destination for vacations, they'll always bring extra money to buy cherries or apricots or other things that will be way more expensive back in Siberia, or maybe they even couldn't buy them at all. So they'll be also combining a trip with some purchasing things. So that's my story about the trains in Soviet Union. I hope you enjoy the show. I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Goodbye.